Hey guys, welcome back to the Bad Dating Podcast. I'm your host, Michael James. Should you date someone who plays video games? That's what we're talking about on today's episode. But before we begin, please follow up and like, subscribe, and comment on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Bad Dating Podcast. We're trying to be responsive and trying to keep improving the episodes, but it takes your help to do it. And just giving us a little bit of feedback, giving us that thumbs up or that like or leaving that comment really goes a long way to help us out. So let's jump into it. I'm talking about, should you date someone who plays video games? And why is that important? Well, first off, the Nintendo Direct is happening. That made me think, wow, a lot of people play video games, and that has led to a lot of bad dating. That's why I'm bringing this up. Because should you date someone who plays video games? Well, dating is kind of going to run into someone who plays video games. Video games used to be a niche market, but now video games have surpassed movies, music, and television combined. So chances are you're going to run into someone who plays video games. And also, unfortunately, a lot of people don't identify themselves as gamers. Some people will spend hours upon hours upon hours a day and a week playing video games. And if you ask them if they were a video gamer or a gamer, they wouldn't say yes. They would, because they're like, no, I'm not a gamer. Because for them, they think video gaming means you have to have a console. And a lot of people play video games on their phone, video games on a tablet. And that's how the way things are going these days. So surprisingly, there's a lot of video gamers out there. And also, video gaming used to be seen as more of a niche thing that was predominantly male, and it was. And according to Statistica, as of December 2023, 48% of the video game players in the US are female. So that tells you a lot of people are playing video games, and you're going to need to know, should you date someone who plays video games? So we're going to dig into this because you're probably going to encounter something that does. So there are 5 questions that you need to decide if you're going to see someone who plays video games. So question number 1, how often do they play video games? Question number 2, what do they play? Question number 3, does that impact their time with you? Question number 4, how much do they spend to play video games? And finally, question number 5, is this something you guys can play together? So we're going to jump into it. How often do they play? So video games can be something that someone maybe does on their phone. If you play Wordle, maybe you play it every day. Play it every other day. Or maybe you have a console and you do play. For me, I'll say it's something I play every day, but there's the caveat. How often do I play? What do I play? So play every day, but I play the type of games that can be stopped and paused in 5 minutes. So I like some of the simple games, especially like puzzle games. So these can be things that, hey, play for a little bit, stop. Oh, I'm doing something else. So I've moved away from any sort of online open world game that drags you in and is super immersive, because when I was younger, those kind of games definitely sucked me in and then sucked away all my time. And so I don't really play those anymore. So what do they play? And because again, are you really going to choose to date someone or choose to not date someone because they play a video game that maybe they just saw the new Fallout show. You guys just binged the new Fallout show on Amazon. And they're like, wow, I really like this. Hey, did you know that there's a video game about this? And they start playing. So maybe they play for the week and they got really into it and they never play again. That's not really a problem. That's not a consistent problem for someone doing something once. Back in the day, people used to play the World of Warcraft, or people still play COD to that degree, where it kind of creates problems. So that's why it's like, does it impact your time with them? And that's an important thing to consider. for me, when I start dating someone, they're never going to see me play video games. And I say that because if I make a date with you, we have plans to hang out, we're doing things together. Yeah, video games are the last thing on my mind. Now, if things are progressing and getting serious, we're just like, yes, you're probably going to see that because there's going to be the downtime where I'm taking downtime, but we're still together. So for someone who I was seeing, it was like they never saw me play video games until things kind of got serious. And then when we're just relaxing or driving or just kind of riding somewhere and there's just downtime, yeah, I'd play video games, but then I can stop. And then also if there's ever becomes an important conversation, as if you can pause or stop, put it down, look at the person who's talking to you, and then just have that in-depth conversation, then it kind of doesn't really necessarily impact them. But that's why good communication is always important for that. And then how much do they spend to play the video games? Is it something that they buy once? They spend the $70 because that's how much the average video game for systems costs. If they have a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, S, or even a Nintendo Switch, those games kind of cost $60, but we'll just say 70. How much do they spend? $60, $70 one time, and that kind of like entertains them for multiple weeks, multiple weekends, a month. Some people play one video game for 6 months, but not because the game is so in depth that it takes a full 6 months, but they barely play it. So they're just fine of doing a little bit, come back to it next weekend, do a little bit, come back to it next weekend. And so a game that takes 10 hours to beat took 10 weekends for them to beat because they only play it 1 hour a weekend. That's not that bad, especially when it comes to cost and time involved. Some people, especially when it comes to mobile games, will spend $5 every day. And then it's $5 every day for 10 weeks. So you see how that adds up? Because so in the video gaming culture, that's called a whale. A whale is someone who spends a lot of money in a game and pumps in so much that's what video gamer makers want to hook people into, is like, yeah, if we can get the person who spends $5 a day every day, that makes more money than the person who spent $70 once and then just only plays that game for the next year. So, and that has become the thing that has impacted some relationships, because you get someone who is heavily invested in a mobile game or even some regular games where they're spending thousands of dollars on this one game. And when it starts to draw from funds that, cool, if you have mutual funds, or it starts impacting their spending and their time, like that's when that becomes a problem. So that's why that list is here. And then also the final question is it something you guys can enjoy together? Video games are a team sport / entertainment activity. So if you can play something with someone, maybe it's not even a problem. Like, yes, it's a problem if you're playing a video game, or if you're seeing someone who plays a video game and then they lock themselves away for a weekend. And it's like not a weekend where they live separately, because especially if you live separately and you didn't have plans, that's kind of understandable. But you live with someone, and then it just seems to be that thing that they lock themselves away and it's like, yeah, but I'm here. I can't see you. I can't interact. If you have a game where you can spend time together, that is the best thing you guys can do. So on dating profiles, I've noticed for a little bit now, a lot of women will put that they play Mario Kart. And that is a great thing. If you put Mario Kart on there, first, sometimes they're talking about an older version of Mario Kart, but that's something you can do and enjoy together. That's one of those things that couples do, and like, hey, this is what we can do. And this is, friends came over, and you guys can share and enjoy that. And that just can bring you guys closer together. So should you date someone who plays video games? It kind of is just a combination of all those things, and then plus good communication. Because if you can feel secure in your guys' time together, why not? If you can feel secure and communicate like, hey, it's fine. I understand you have this game that just came out and you want to play it. So you're telling me in advance, hey, there's going to be this new game. I'm going to kind of throw myself at it for this weekend, but then it'll be done. But not only are you communicating that, but you're making the effort to show that like, hey, that the person's important beforehand, then it's not a problem. If you know this is coming, you've communicated it, and then you start making such a big effort and showing that time, usually it's kind of like understandable. It's like, hey, so you're saying this one thing that really matters to you 3 months from now is going to kind of consume you for a weekend or maybe consume you for like 2 weekends. That's not that bad. And then, oh, well, you took me on this date. You're doing all this planning and stuff. Then it's becomes perfectly reasonable and acceptable to, yeah, I took a little bit of me time. And that's one of the things that needs to be talked about in a relationship. You need to be able to take a little bit of time away from someone to decompress. My first relationship where I had lived with someone, I had never had that sort of background or experience to like understand that like, hey, I need to decompress away from this person, or just in a way that's just like, yeah, we're spending all our time together. And it's like, oh, wow, I love her and I care about her. But like, oh man, we just had an argument and like things are cool, but we argued in the bedroom and then I'm in the living room and then she comes in the living room and I go in the kitchen and then she goes in the kitchen, and especially in a 2-bedroom apartment, that was like stressful. I didn't understand the need for like personal space, and she didn't understand the need for personal space and being able to decompress. So now I'm a very big proponent of that, and I like to talk about that even if it's not a relationship, even if you're just talking casually, seeing, you need to have these conversations. And that's why, so if you play video games or if you see someone who plays video games, it shouldn't be something that you are afraid of. It should just be something that you're like, okay, well, I know this. So what does that mean to them? Oh, hey, they play mobile games. Oh, they play Wordle. Oh, we can play together. That's not a big deal. Oh, they play the new Mario Kart game. They're playing something that's getting announced at the Nintendo Direct. Oh man, this is great. Or maybe they're hype. So, story time. I was in South Carolina. Someone brought me over to their friend's house and we were drinking and hanging out, and they're giving me a tour of the house. And I see on this, in the garage, on this very, very high table, a very elaborate and extravagant Lego set being built. And it's like just the pieces where I was like, oh, this is very cool. And I'm just like, wait a minute. I mean, they have young kids, but the kids are way too small for this high table. So I asked, wait, so does your husband play with Legos? And she said, yeah, of course. It's like, so you let him play with Legos? Because again, in my mind, I couldn't fathom. I couldn't think of like, he's playing with this kid thing that's so juvenile, whatever. And she was like, she set me straight. She was like, yeah, I mean, if it keeps him home and keeps him happy, why would I not let him? And that like took me back, because I was just like, wow, you're right. That is the correct answer. I didn't even realize that. Like, yeah, you should be able to do those things that allow you to decompress. And if it keeps you home and able to be, she's like, he gets to be around his kids and with him. And it's not like you're out worrying about if he's out drinking or what he's doing, whatever. It's just like, I mean, he's over here and he's present in everyone's lives. That's kind of the goal. So many people, unfortunately, scapegoat video games as to saying that's a problem. And it's like, is it a problem? No, it can be a hobby. Some people use that hobby too much to escape, but it's a hobby, and you should want whoever you're seeing or yourself to have hobbies, and not just have one. Because unfortunately, these days, a lot of people wrap themselves into having just one hobby, and that's how they build their life. It was like, yep, this is how I define myself. I'm just into this one thing, and this is everything. You should have several hobbies. For me, I learn Japanese. I go roller skating. I go walking. I go to the gym. I'm big into movies. I'm a foodie. I do all these other things because first, it helps you be a well-rounded person, helps you grow and learn new things and push yourself and stay active and challenge. And because you can't always do one thing all the time or even two things all the time, because the first time it's raining and I can't go walking. If that was my only thing that I like to do, that's not good, especially if it drags on from just, okay, one day is fine, but then 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, you're not able to decompress, and then you're walking around stressed, and then some people transfer that stress out onto others, and some people just kind of bottle that up and it just eats away at them. So that's why I'm like very big on if I'm seeing someone, I'll talk to them about like, hey, so what are you into? Like, hey, what are your hobbies? Oh, have you thought about doing anything else? Or if they even, sometimes people say like, yeah, I kind of like, I'm interested in learning Spanish or whatever. I was like, oh, wait, anything I can do to help? I mean, I have access to Rosetta Stone. I can install that for you, to try to give people those things, because I understand how big of a matter being able to decompress. Sometimes it's not decompressing from who you're with or what you're doing. It's just life, because everyone needs that. Everyone needs just a little bit of time to unwind and to escape and then just not think. It's just taking your brain from like a computer running at full power, just like putting in like the low power conserve mode, just bring it down a level just so you can like not expend so much energy. So yes, you should consider playing video games with the person that you're seeing if they're into it. Maybe they're into games that you're just like, I have no interest in playing. See if you can find a happy medium. Not everyone wants to play a horror game. Not everyone wants to play a puzzle game. Not everyone wants to play a first-person shooter. So you try to see where's the happy medium. There are some games where it's just like you're not into shooting, but then they introduce you to the game of Splatoon on the Nintendo. And Splatoon's a very colorful, very bright game where you're spraying paint around and you really don't even have to be good at shooting the other team to like still be contributing and still have fun. And it's a very engaging game. Maybe that's for you, or maybe you guys find a puzzle game, or maybe you find one of these storytelling games where you guys make the decisions together and then it plays out where it's just like, oh, do you betray this person's trust? Or these sort of role-playing games that like are so immersive. Storytelling can be phenomenal in video games. Again, the industry has exceeded music, movies, and TV combined. So you do get some of the film storytellers who will come over to video games, and you get video game makers who grew up watching film. So the storytelling has improved. Not every video game is like Super Mario Brothers, where there's no real story besides save the princess and that's it. Some of them are very in-depth and very much try to pull at you emotionally. So that may be your guys' thing. I know several couples who one person plays, the other person watches, but they play games that attracts both people to watching and playing, and then they talk, and that can be a great thing. So it's one of those things that you have to be willing to work with someone and communicate and kind of understand yourself, and hopefully that person understands themselves. Because no, you shouldn't date someone who forsakes you for video games. Yes, there have been numerous times I've heard where women have presented offers of nudity and fun times to their partner to get rejected because they were playing video games. Sometimes people play video games and they really are that hooked into video games, or sometimes they're dealing with maybe like depression and they're just trying to do a little bit of escape, and they may not know how to communicate that. So that's why it's just kind of, I encourage people to play video games. I encourage people to date people who play video games, but you need to be able to have more of a conversation about what that can mean. And then like, look at those 5 questions, see how that impacts what you guys are doing. Maybe if you guys are willing to play video games together and have set times or times that work. Don't make this an ultimatum for someone, because if you start giving out ultimatums, it's not going to go well. You should just say like, hey, I want to work together. What can we do to make this work? Sometimes people just want to know that you're not trying to take something away, or it's just like, wow, yeah, she's actually fine with me playing video games, but like, hey, I just need to, she's encouraging me to spend like, all day Saturday during the day video games, but like, hey, I agreed to take her out at night, and I'm going to make plans. I'm going to make a reservation. I'm going to do these things that let her know that like, hey, I did get absorbed for a little bit, but I'm still a valuable partner who can contribute and take care of her needs or his needs. It doesn't matter whose it is, just as long as you guys are talking together. And that's the thing that people forget. Communication is kind of the secret to answer to a lot of things in relationship, or a lot of things in dating. Some people won't ever get to the dating portion where it's just like, yes, we're working things out, because they're terrible at communicating. They hear that someone plays video games and they're just like, my ex did that and he was terrible to me because he always ignored me, so I will never do that again. And they say that internally. They'll get a little bit of information and then they will tune out, and then they won't give anyone a chance, or they won't give that person a chance to show that like, yeah, I play video games every day, but it's a short game and it doesn't really control my life or do anything. And it just also lets me decompress. Like, that's a huge difference. But again, like I said, not everyone's good at communicating. So play video games with someone. That can be a great team building thing. And not everything has to be some crazy video game. I mean, honestly, Monopoly is a video game too. So as someone who has taken the time, because I love Monopoly, to buy a board, to do a game night, to do game nights, and then have all these things, then you're just like, all right, cool. Now I have this big box that I need to put here, and then I'm putting my Scrabble here, and then I'm put Connect 4, and then you have a hallway full of video games that don't get used as much. So like, yes, if you can have a digital version, that works even better. And consider that as an option to just save space. Because yeah, maybe you have a video game system, or maybe you're just using your tablet, or you're using your phone. All these things can play video games. You don't even have to own a system anymore to be able to play video games. But the thing is, should you date someone who plays video games? I think yes. If you've had a negative experience, please share in the comments. Or if you have something positive, again, there's people who've gotten married because they met in video games, or that was the thing that connected them and took them back to their happy place. Because especially these days, people have parents who played video games with them. And so it can be one of those things that bind. So I would love to hear those stories. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Please, like I said, take the time to comment or subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, just because I'm trying to help grow the channel. And if you guys leave me comments, I'd love to respond. Love to also just hear what's going on in the community, because again, I'm always looking for topics. And if you're experiencing something that can be bad dating, please let me know. Because yes, video games have been the source of many a bad date. But also, it can be something for some good dating too. And we're here for that as well. All right, till the next one.